This one's from Alec. And I'm glad he asked this because I probably needed to sit down and explain this, and I probably needed to make this list. Hi, Andy. You often talk about coaches at certain schools being hired to, quote unquote, win the national championship. How many of these schools are there, and who are they? All right, let's qualify this first. When I say that your job is to win the national championship at a certain school, I do not mean I think you're going to win it this year or that you even can win it this year. I mean, your fan base thinks that the only two acceptable trajectories while you are coaching this team are getting better so that you can eventually win the national championship or in contention for the national championship. Those are the only two acceptable trajectories. You are not allowed to do anything else or have any other kind of year. There are definitely schools like that where the fan base feels that way, where the program is certainly not in a place where it is on a trajectory to eventually compete for national titles or where it's in contention for national titles. And we'll talk about those in a second. It's more about that fan expectation and, in a way, administrative expectation, because if the administration, one, feels that way, or two, allows the fans to sway it to make a more rash decision or to demand more success sooner than probably is reasonable, then you have the same problem. So I made a list, and the one I was talking about a few years ago the most was Auburn. When Brian Harsin was at Auburn and you watched his recruiting, I kept saying over and over, does he understand what his job is? Does he understand that his job is to win the national title at Auburn? Because he was not recruiting like a person whose job is to win the national title. Like, to do that, you have to go head to head with Georgia, with Alabama, with Ohio State for players. You've got to make players who would have gone to those places come to your school. That's the only way you can do the job correctly. And he wasn't doing that. And I wasn't sure he understood that because it seemed like a conscious decision. Like, I'll give you another example. Billy Napier at Florida. Florida is one of these schools. Is Florida in a position to win the national title? Of course not. Are they on a trajectory where they're coming closer to winning a national title? I don't think so. I don't think they're doing that either. I do think Billy Napier understands the expectation, though. Like, he understands the job is to win the national title. He's just not doing the job as well as he needs to keep it. So let's list those schools. Here are the ones that are definitely in that category: Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. I would not have put Michigan on this list before they cut Jim Harbaugh's pay a few years ago. But when they did, it was like, okay, yeah, you're going to be cutthroat too. So you're on this list. LSU, absolutely on this list. The last three coaches before Brian Kelly won the national title. Brian Kelly is expected to win the national title. No ifs, ands, or buts. Texas is on this list. Texas A&M, despite not winning a national title since 1939, is on this list because that is what is expected. This fan base says, hey, we have all the resources. We have the location. We have all of the pieces in place that should allow us to compete for national titles. We just don't. But A&M's done this before. This multiple years. I mean, this goes back decades. When they hired Jackie Sherrill in the 80s, this was Texas A&M saying, we should be competing for national championships. What the hell is going on here? They're not changing. That's going to still be the expectation and the demand. Florida, I just mentioned them. Now, you can argue that Florida's expectations have caused the coaching churn to go faster than it should have. I don't know if that's the case. I just know they know what they want. Now, perhaps because they've gone so long without sustained success, those expectations are dropping a little bit. But I don't think they're dropping that much. Florida State's another one I'd put on this list. A few years ago, I might not have. But now that Mike Norvell's got them back where they're very good. You remember, they're only 11 years removed from a national title. They were recruiting among the best teams in the country for a long time. I do think the expectation among the Florida State fan base is you're supposed to win a national title here. And I think if you look at what's happened, it's not unreasonable. Obviously, Bobby Bowden was one of the greatest of all time, but Jimbo Fisher won one. Mike Norvell just had a 13-0 season in an ACC championship. Now, they didn't get to play for the national title because they were left out of the playoff. That wouldn't happen this year. They're going to be in the playoff if they're in that position again, so they can prove it. But I do think that expectation, that fan base says, yeah, we're among the best in the country. We should be playing for national titles. Now, I've got a few with question marks. All of those, I think, are the definites, where if you were to interview for, let's say your job opens up, like Alabama's opened up, and a candidate said to the AD, can you give me a one-sentence job description? The AD should just say your job's to win the national title. All of those I just listed, that's what the AD should say. Whether it's true or not, whether it's something that can actually happen or not, is irrelevant. It's what is expected. Here's some that I am curious what you guys think, because I'm a little on the fence. Notre Dame. I don't feel like the Notre Dame administration is putting that much pressure on a coach to win the national title. I don't really feel like the Notre Dame fan base necessarily is either. I feel like they are fairly realistic. They understand that the way Notre Dame handles academics, that it fishes from a little bit smaller pool than a lot of the national title contenders do in recruiting. So I feel like there's a little more reasonable approach to this. But then I see some quotes that some Notre Dame fans sent me when we talked about this in another way. And I said Notre Dame, doesn't feel like they absolutely need a national title. It was an answer to a Dear Andy question, which programs need a national title. And Notre Dame fans are sending me quotes from Pete Bavacqua, the new AD, basically saying, we need to win a national title in football. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, if you say so. So we probably should put them on this list too. If that's what the guy in charge is saying, we should probably believe him. Clemson. Pre-Dabo, I don't think Clemson fans expected national titles. I do think they expected a better team than they were frequently getting, but I don't think they expected national titles. Dabo gave them national titles. I think as long as Dabo's there, they expect a really good team. I don't get the sense that they're completely unreasonable. And I also, look, if they were like some of these other programs on this list, they would be agitating right now. They would be like, I don't know if Dabo's going to make it. And I don't get that sense from them. I still think there's a great appreciation for what Dabo Swinney's done. There's a great love of Dabo Swinney at Clemson. And if you were that cutthroat, like some of these other fan bases I was talking about, the discourse would be completely different right now. So I don't think Clemson belongs on that list. Penn State. This is a really interesting one. And I kind of feel like we need to get Sean Fitz from Blue and White Illustrated on and ask him this question. Get people who are a little more attuned with the program, because from the outside, it seems like they're perfectly okay with not being in that echelon of national championship contenders, at least from an administrative standpoint. I think a lot of the fan base would like them to be a little more high pressured, would like them to say, no, we do demand more. We want more than this. But I don't know that they necessarily get that from the administration. Now, part of it is Pat Kraft, the AD, got the job after James Franklin had been signed to this most recent extension. And James Franklin's extension came at the time people were handing out huge extensions because USC was open and LSU was open. And so even if you were supremely unhappy, there's not much you could do about it. So I don't know, again, where Penn State falls in this. It might just be circumstantial. But I don't get the sense that that's a place where the fan base or the administration said, we are going to run you out if you don't start getting closer to national titles. But I may be wrong on that. I'm curious if there are any Penn State fans in the chat. Let me know. How do you feel about that? What would you want? What's realistic? And I guess it doesn't even have to be realistic because we talk about like Auburn and Florida, which right now national title contention isn't realistic, but those fan bases expect their coaches to get them back there. So like Hugh Freeze just got to Auburn. Obviously, they're not expecting him to win the national title this year, but they are expecting him to make significant progress toward getting into the realm of contention. A couple more question mark schools I had, and I'm definitely not sure on these either. USC. So USC's administration was incredibly patient with Clay Helton. So patient that you think, okay, maybe they're not that serious about this. Now, they've since overhauled the administration as well. And that's when they hired Lincoln Riley. So it may be that they're in a different mode right now. And I think given the way things have gone since Riley got there, the push to, I think Riley got pushed from above to fire Alex Grinch. It might not have been something he necessarily wanted to do, but the administration worked to make that happen. I think USC may be on this list, may belong on this list. I don't know, though. That's one I would like to talk to somebody who's a little closer to it to get an understanding of where they are. But I think they belong on this list, whereas maybe Penn State or Clemson, I wouldn't put on the list. And the other one is a school that I think if they get a little better, they definitely go on this list, is Tennessee. I think Tennessee walked through the wilderness for so long that their fan base got a little bit reasonable, which I can't believe I'm even saying that about my friends from Vol Twitter, because those guys are about the least reasonable people you'll ever meet. But I do think they were dealing with frustration and just spinning wheels for so long that they got their expectations kind of leveled out. But I do think another good year or two from Josh Heupel, and they'll be right back where we're on the level of crazy with Florida, with Auburn, with Texas A&M, where it's like, no, you better be winning a national title. I don't think they're there right now, but I do think one or two more good years, and they're absolutely on the list. So, Alec, that is the list. If there's one I missed, please let me know. I don't think there is. And again, I don't think, like especially Texas A&M, Auburn, Florida, I don't think they're going to win a national title or that they should win a national title right now. I don't think they're in position. But I'm telling you right now, their fans think their coach's job is to win the national title, and that makes things very tough if you're the coach. The hill you have to climb is very steep. And so the A&M and Auburn have recently made changes. Billy Napier, we'll see what happens to him at Florida. If they make a change, it will be steep for the next guy. Just like it was steep for Billy Napier. And that's kind of where the debate comes in. But I'm not here to tell you what you do or don't want. And I've said that multiple times when Brian Harsin got fired at Auburn, when Jimbo got fired at Texas A&M, when Dan Mullen got fired at Florida. Like, I'm not going to tell you what you do or don't want. You want what you want. Those places, they won national titles. Whether it's realistic or not is irrelevant. So that's the job description. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.